You're in for a treat. We had the one, the only Jaime Leverton, former CEO of Hut 8, builder and CEO of ReserveOne, talking all about digital asset treasuries, digital asset stockpiles, what it's like to run multiple public companies and building while being a parent. This has been one of the best conversations. Jaime is so organized in her thought process and building in this space, and she's been in crypto, Bitcoin mining, digital assets, cloud infrastructure, and she gives us a wealth of her experience and knowledge and drops in some gems about what builders can do in this space going forward, including working with and building some of the top crypto talent around the world that have zero egos. This is a great episode for anyone building in the crypto payment tech space. We talk a lot about stablecoins and the regulations in the US versus Canada. Great to have Jaime on the episode, hearing more about the ReserveOne, and we can't wait to see what they're building. But check out this episode if you're a builder in the space, especially those OGs that have been listening to this podcast for the last decade. This is a treat for you. Talk soon. This is your host, Stephen Sargeant, Around the Coin podcast. We have an exceptional guest today, Jaime Leverton, CEO of ReserveOne. Many know you as the CEO of Hut 8. You know, a lot of companies that have a word and a number in it, which I find interesting to have back-to-back companies like that. Jaime, I would love to know, give me a little bit of a background. We're going to talk a little bit about what you've built up until this point and your vast amount of experience in different worlds, including telco.
Try not to age me. You really emphasized the word vast there, Stephen.
That was around knowledge and experience and the different companies, not years, not years.
No, it's all good. I have been around 2.5 decades now in this space, so certainly had a lot of amazing experiences over my career and feel very blessed that I continue to do that and be a builder with my new venture here at ReserveOne. So it's amazing to be on the show. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm curious, was there a path that you had? I think we all grew up in, like, you know, especially when we were in those formative years of leaving university and going into a career. Was there a certain path that you had, or maybe, you know, something that diverted you from that path, a conversation, an introduction, you know, to a company or a person or a mentor? Is there, like, can you think of a moment where, like, I was going down this path and then, like, something really interesting hit me and that changed the course of my career?
Actually, I've had a couple of those. I think the first one came very early. I was in a bit of a rush to get out of my hometown. So I started university when I was 17, and I actually didn't even know you had to declare a major. That's how naive I was at the time. And I went to the University of Ottawa. As you know, I'm Canadian. I went to the University of Ottawa, and if you didn't declare a major, they just defaulted you into political science because Ottawa is the capital of Canada. And so I stuck with it, and I added a concentration in psychology. And while I was going to university, I bartended, I waitressed, I was the assistant manager at a restaurant in Ottawa. And then when I was coming into my last year of undergrad, I realized I had no idea what to do after. A poli-science psych undergrad doesn't exactly lead to a certainty in a career path, nor did my waitressing career. So I went to the guidance office at the University of Ottawa, and I said, "Look, I have no idea what to do with my life. These are my degrees. This is my experience." And they put me through a whole bunch of interest and aptitude testing, basically to spit out the top careers that I would be most likely to be successful at and enjoy doing. And long story short, 7 of the top 10 were in business. So I had obviously chosen the wrong start in my university career. But because I had the assistant manager experience at the restaurant, I was able to apply to do my MBA right out of undergrad. And I chose Dalhousie University on the east coast of Canada to do my MBA. And they were the first MBA program at that time, which was, I graduated in 2000. So I guess 98 is when I started. They offered a concentration in marketing informatics, which is really the precursor to what is now big data or business intelligence. And I had been lucky that I grew up with computers in the house and I loved coding and gaming. And so I thought to do an MBA that had this concentration and let me play around with data and with computers, I just thought that would make my MBA experience more fun for me. And ultimately, that's what led to me starting a career in tech, because IBM recruited myself and one other person from that program, moved me to Toronto, and that's where I started my career at IBM in 2000.
I'm really curious about, the MBA. Looking back, you've probably, been introduced to so many entrepreneurs, many at different levels. You're a
Yes.
mentor in this space. Do you think that I was like actually having this conversation with myself today? I'm like, there's so much I don't know about business being an entrepreneur. I'm like, I wonder how much more I would be comfortable with numbers and EBITDA had I went and got an MBA or went to business school. Do you see the benefit of that? Because it seems like we went through a stage where like people were like shutting MBAs and it wasn't as
Yeah.
important. What are your thoughts on that looking back now?
Looking back, I think I actually, I think my combination was really, really perfect for me where I ultimately wanted to go. Being a CEO of a public company, I rely on my psych and poli-sci degrees as much as my MBA. But certainly I wouldn't have been able to step into the career I've had if I didn't have the MBA. So for me, it was incredibly valuable. But as you referenced, I do mentor a ton of people in the space, and often I get that question: should I do my MBA? And it's very person specific.
Right.
It's about what they're trying to get out of it. Can they do an executive MBA? What's their family situation? I think it's very much a case by case answer for me. I would say on the whole, I probably advise against it more often than I'm supportive of it. And that's really just when you put everything in the balance. It's not an easy answer for sure.
I love it. One of the interesting things on your resume is the Blackberry. Blackberry 2014, 2016. I think
Yeah.
most people would have thought like Blackberry was probably dead by then or transitioning out of devices into more like IoT or IT things. What was it like working for Blackberry at the later stages when you're in charge of the North American market, which was like heavily impacted by obviously iOS and Android at that time?
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole podcast just on my BlackBerry experience. By the time I went to BlackBerry, I had started to specialize my career in transformation work. So, in the early years, taking on underperforming business units and trying to figure out how to fix them, how to bring more positive revenue or EBITDA or whatever the challenge they were having. Really trying to fix it and produce more positive results for the business units. And over time, that became true for me in companies as well. And so the opportunity to go to BlackBerry came about in early mid 2014. John Chen had recently taken over the company really to drive a transformation mandate because BlackBerry, to your point, was in a super difficult spot. It had gone through a series of challenges, which you can see in the BlackBerry movie. For those of you that are interested in those early years of BlackBerry, it's actually a great movie. Um, and so for me, it was an opportunity to get a front row seat and watch John Chen and his team drive a transformation mandate. John had done two really successful tech transformations in the United States, and this was his third. So for me, starting to carve out a niche for myself in transformation, there was no better front row seat than BlackBerry in 14. And part of my mission was to try to save the handset division. So over that period that I was there, we launched Android as an operating system on the BlackBerry device, and that was a spectacularly incredible experience. And we were able to get ranging with all of the major North American carriers, which nobody thought was possible. We launched a couple of really, really incredible phones. BlackBerry had a patent portfolio that was second to none at the time, and a lot of that technology was integrated into their handsets, and really, really beautiful devices. But ultimately, it was too late, and we didn't have the war chest that we needed from a marketing perspective. We'd lost a lot of market share, and Apple and Samsung were just frankly too dominant. So ultimately, the company made the decision to license the handset business and focus exactly to your opening on software and IoT, which has been very successful, and certainly was the right move for them at the time. But as a proud Canadian BlackBerry user from day one, I didn't want to give up my keyboard at all, and it was a really tough transition to all glass, but here we are.
Yeah, nobody did, I think. Do you have like a nightstand like
I
with like
do.
a bunch of
I
Blackberries in
do.
it, used ones in it,
Yes,
a bunch of headphones,
I do.
adapters? Well, I
Yep.
think we all have that kind of headset. But hey, looking at, I was in, TELUS the other day, or Best Buy Mobile, and they're bringing back like the Razer phones. Like, you
Yeah.
never know what could happen with nostalgia, right? Like, I have a deconstructed Game Boy behind me, but I'm sure BlackBerry will have a similar thing. People will make a business out of it. I want to talk a little bit about Hut 8, which was a huge success. But you take over as CEO in 2020. And I think
Yeah.
if many of us have been in crypto, especially since the 2017 hype, 2020, like talking about Bitcoin was like, talking about AI in 2020. Like nobody was
Right.
really talking about it. They knew about it. A lot of companies were in, AI at the time, but nobody was really talking about it. What was it like, especially working in such a stagnant industry? After a 2017 bull market, it was the perfect time for skeptics to say, hey, look, what's
Mhm.
happening? How did you end up transitioning into Bitcoin mining? And did you leverage some of your cloud-based infrastructure, telco experience and working with digital asset mining?
Yeah, for sure. At the end of the day, a Bitcoin mine is a data center.
Right.
There are lots of significant differences between a Bitcoin mining data center and a high performance computing data center or traditional colocation data center. But fundamentally, a lot of the operational elements are the same. And over my 20-year career before I took over Hut in the fall of 2020, I spent a lot of time in the data center space. I had multiple stints at different companies within data centers. I love infrastructure. I referenced that I had developed a specialty in transformation, and Hut 8 that fall was in a really difficult period. They had struggled during the COVID Bitcoin crash in the spring. The stock was trading on the venture, and then that fall actually moved up to the TSX big board. But it wasn't particularly liquid. We had a lot of challenges in the company overall. They'd had an interim CEO for a number of months, and the board got my name through an executive recruiter that I had worked with before on a couple of other transformation mandates, and so over a series of months, the board and I got to know each other and understand kind of their vision for the company longer term, and my background and my skill set, and then ultimately I made the decision to take the plunge, which wasn't for the faint of heart. Right, it was my first CEO job. And it was of a public company in a very nascent, volatile, somewhat controversial space, and the company was in trouble. So it certainly wasn't for the faint of heart that I stepped into that role. But I fundamentally believed in the business. I believed in the space. I believed I could turn it around in a way that would be meaningful for shareholders and for stakeholders, employees, the board, everybody. And I'm blessed that ended up being true. That I was able to come in and drive real change quickly from a transformation perspective, and then build out some really significant innovations in the space. We were the first publicly traded mining company to say we're no longer going to sell our Bitcoin. We were going to hodl our Bitcoin. We were the first to transition into the data center space when
Right.
we purchased the TerraGo data center business in early 2022. That's obviously a big trend in the mining space now, but
Especially with
right,
AI
I
and
took a lot of
everything else.
heat.
Did you see a shift into, like, obviously now everyone's talking about physical
Yeah.
manufacturing, when back then, like looking at, people probably weren't, lining up
Oh
at,
gosh, I got
at
so
Hut
much.
8 Bitcoin mining sites trying to give you monies like VCs and stuff. But like,
No,
how did you
I got a
educate
lot of
the
heat. Yeah.
TSX to get on there? I'm curious about that because I'm assuming it was a big educational experience where you have to educate them.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be the first because usually the first means that you're going to come with some lessons learned. So, how did you get them to convince them and educate them on why Hut 8 should be on the TSX?
The company was already public when I took over. It was already on the venture and in the
Right.
process of, before I came on officially, but during the interview process, actually I was announced. So I think my head is in the video when we rang the virtual bell, because it was still COVID, of the TSX Big Board. And we were the first to graduate from the Venture Sandbox program, which is a really successful program that the TSX has run, and we were lucky to be their first graduate in the space, if memory serves, which I think I'm right. So that was awesome. And then we were also fortunate enough to be the first public Bitcoin mining company, Canadian public Bitcoin mining company, to dual list onto the NASDAQ, which we did in the spring of 21. And that brought a ton of visibility to Hut 8 and what we were doing, a lot of incremental liquidity into the stock, of course. And really that kind of catapulted Hut into a different stratosphere when we were able to tap into both the TSX proper and the NASDAQ as well.
I love it. Let's jump into ReserveOne because, there's a lot of momentum. Trump has completely turned around the way digital assets are viewed in the US. It seems like a stablecoin company is popping up every day now. And there's, someone that's really close to the crypto compliance space, there's a lot of hiring going on for, Series A companies or pre-seed companies there. What's it like being in the US now, versus what you were seeing, especially back in the Bitcoin mining days?
Yeah, look, from a regulatory perspective, it's completely different. I completed the merger between Hut 8 and US Bitcoin in 24. We also re-domiciled the company. We moved headquarters from Canada to the US, and that was all under the Gensler regime, which was really, really difficult, really painstaking. We had to spend a lot of time, a lot of money on lawyers to ultimately get that deal approved and through and get us trading directly on the NASDAQ as a direct issuer, as opposed to what we were before, which was a foreign issuer coming from Canada and the TSX. This time, we're in the process of getting our S4 together to file. We announced our business combination agreement in July. We're going public via a de-SPAC. So the SPAC company, which is a blank check company for those that aren't familiar, it has $287.5 million in the SPAC trust, but no, it doesn't have an operating company. It was looking for an operating company, and that is where they found me and ReserveOne. ReserveOne is the target, and so we are going through the process ultimately with the SEC to approve this business combination agreement and allow us to merge into that existing SPAC. The ticker of that SPAC is MBAV. But once the deal closes, we will trade under R1, RONE as the new ticker, and hopefully we'll get that done before the end of this year, somewhere between Thanksgiving and Christmas, U.S. Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah, you have to, as both Canadians are like, Thanksgiving is like next month. I'm curious, can you break down maybe just kind of high level? Because we've heard of SPACs before. Like, is it an entity that had a bunch of, capital that they want to deploy?
That's
and
right.
now you're coming in and showing them like, hey, these are the assets we want to deploy in. This is our strategy. And now you're combining your efforts of your operational expertise
That's
and
right.
their capital that's just looking for a place to store it.
That's exactly right at a high level. We also announced that we had raised a PIPE in conjunction with the business combination agreement. So we raised $750 million, 250 in a convert, 500 million in equity. And then there is the cash that sits in the SPAC trust, which, as I mentioned, was 287.5 million. So looking to come to market with a significant amount of capital, which will deploy into digital assets. We are very unique as far as what we're building here at ReserveOne. We are inspired by the momentum that we're seeing from the federal government in two parts. So the strategic Bitcoin reserve is one element, and we'll have about 80% of the digital assets we hold will be in Bitcoin. And then the other 20% really inspired by the digital asset stockpile, So far, we believe Ethereum, Solana, XRP, and ADA will be held in that stockpile. And so that's what we'll mirror in that 20% sleeve that we have for alternative tokens. We determine the weighting mechanism, so it'll be more heavily weighted towards ETH and Solana because they give us a good ability to generate yield. And one of the differences for us as well is that we will be actively looking to generate revenue or yield from the assets while we hold them on the balance sheet. That allows us to fund the overhead of the company. And if there's anything over and above that, it could be reinvested into digital assets. So really excited about our structure, incredibly unique within the digital asset treasury world. We are the only diversified active digital asset treasury out there. I feel like we've brought together a really incredible kind of best-in-class management team and board of directors, which also sets us apart, I think, in the space. Myself, obviously, on the board and CEO. We also have as our president and CIO, Sebastian Bea, who is the former president of Coinbase Asset Management. He will be responsible for generating those returns that I talked about on our assets. And then expected to be on our board of directors, we have Reeve Collins, who is one of the original co-founders of Tether. We have Chin Chu, who was employee number 5, I believe, at Blackstone, now founder and CEO of CC Capital, which is a large private equity company based here in New York. We have Wilbur Ross, former Commerce Secretary, as one of our vice chairs, as well as Gabriel Abed, who is the chair of the board of the world's largest digital asset exchange. And then John D'Agostino, who is the head of strategy for Coinbase Institutional. So really excited about the team that we've pulled together, real depths of crypto, but then also Wall Street and regulatory or Washington, a very seasoned team, tons of experience with public companies and capital raising and M&A activity. So really excited to bring this team out and get to work when we get the transaction closed this fall.
And yeah, I think I even listed in my discussion topics, like, these are Avengers. I know, we all know if you're in Canada, Gabriel, but a lot of these people just don't have like local, they worked at Coinbase. They have like a wide variety of like educating regulators and getting regulators on board.
Very
so like
much so.
they know the bureaucracy that goes involved in the education it must take. On your website, Jamie, ReserveOne makes it clear that it's not an ETF and it's not a token. So I'd love to know what's a differentiator between the public company that you're running and these other financial products that other investors are investing in.
Yeah, there are a lot of differences, obviously, from a public company, which is what we are, versus an ETF. So an ETF has limitations as far as what can be included, what kind of leverage they can take on, what they can do with the assets. Whereas a public company vehicle such as ReserveOne has access to different types of capital markets products, to longer term leverage. We don't have the same mark to market restrictions that an ETF would have, or different types of other investment vehicles. We also have, as I mentioned, we're a diversified company. We are able to make adjustments over time. We're able to put the assets to work in meaningful ways. Those kinds of structures just aren't available in an ETF format, if you will. And I think what's really special about what we have here at ReserveOne, we can give investors access to the crypto market in one equity. So again, we're 80% Bitcoin, we're 20% alts. And then the other thing we've embedded in our structure, which I think will become more relevant in medium and long term as we think about the future of where this company is ultimately going to go. But we do have the opportunity to invest up to 10% of the digital assets that we hold on our balance sheet into high conviction venture opportunities. And one thing we hear from retail investors over and over and over is that they would love to get access to deals in the private market within this ecosystem. It's really, really difficult for the average investor to do that. So where we see truly high conviction projects come through that we think retail investors would love. We think they're going to have great returns. We have this structure in order to be able to offer that within our platform. And again, it's just one equity that gives you a more diversified type of exposure to this industry as a whole. And that's something that you can't get anywhere else in any other structure or any other public company that's in existence today. And that's truly why we're so excited about what we're building, why we've built it the way we've built it. And we think it's going to be a really compelling story, not just day one when we get the new ticker and are officially closed, but as we look to build and grow this company over the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years.
You mentioned, making money on top of your capital. You mentioned the word yield. For many in the crypto that maybe have invested in Anchor or Celsius, the word yield is probably still giving them nightmares. But you're probably talking about staking yield, which is protocol activity you're making money from, not, loaning out the actual digital asset. Maybe talk about what you define as yield and how maybe your investors can get access to that, where it's almost impossible to get access to that through some of those other financial products that we discussed earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, we're building something that we really want to be best in class, the gold standard within our space. We're, working with top tier auditors, top tier professional counterparties, and really looking to anything we do is with the appropriate lens on risk. So we're very blessed to have a number of strategic partners involved with us on this journey. Many of whom I've had the pleasure of working with over the years. So like Galaxy, FalconX, Kraken, Blockchain.com. They're all with us in this journey, and those are the types of counterparties that we're comfortable working with. Coinbase is our partner for our secured custody of our Bitcoin. So really not looking to generate outsized yields with kind of fly-by-night counterparties, which is what caused a lot of the downfall of that cycle, we'll call it. So certainly not looking to get involved or try to drive outsized returns by taking outsized risk, really looking for very low risk, stable, working with trusted, well-governed, regulated counterparties to generate returns. Obviously, yes, through staking, but given my many years in the Bitcoin world on the mining side, I think there are lots of really interesting ways that we can partner within the ecosystem to put Bitcoin to work in a way that is meaningful but is still appropriately risk adjusted.
Is it challenging? You're working with billions of dollars, just like some of those other financial products we mentioned, but you're kind of going on the momentum of the US government, the momentum of Trump and his administration and their forward thinking and innovation. But there's also the aspect of like, hey, things are great right now, but in 2 years we'll be in another election cycle. Is it tough building in this space, especially because a lot of the regulatory clarity rests on the shoulders of this administration?
Well, I think the industry has done a lot of work over the years to try to keep crypto, Bitcoin, the space as bipartisan as possible. And we saw that in the passing of Genius. It went through in a very bipartisan fashion. And I think it's necessary for that to continue to be the focus. We have to work with regulators and with politicians to educate and ensure that this remains a bipartisan issue or a bipartisan industry. It shouldn't be politicized. And so I think we just have to continue to do that work that the industry's been doing over the last number of years, and ensure that both sides of the aisle see this as an industry that needs to be invested in, that can really put the US on the forefront of digital innovation. And I think more and more we're going to see that to be the case. So I've got a lot of optimism that election cycles will no longer have the impact on our industry that they once did.
I think we've kind of passed that threshold now. Before it was like a lot of back and forth. I think we've passed that threshold. We've seen the optimism from everyone in the industry, including regulators. I'm curious. Your Canadian friends are probably like, hey, bring some of that genius back home when you come home, because we need a little bit more clarity when it comes to stable coins in Canada. Treating them like securities is like shooting ourselves in the foot. I think most people would say. I know it's a lot more nuanced and complex than that. What are your thoughts, the stablecoin regulation in the US versus Canada? Do you think Canada can adopt something like the US has and make stablecoins actually help the payment rails versus right now what's really just hindering them?
Yeah, look, it's been so difficult being a Canadian in this space. I first went down the rabbit hole in Canada in 2017, and we had such a burgeoning ecosystem when I first came into the space. We had so much momentum. We had so many founders, so many innovators. Even our regulatory environment was broadly positive. You saw the TSXV was the first to list public crypto companies. We really had a forward-leaning position. In many ways, we had a bit of a first-mover advantage. Ethereum was founded in Canada. A ton of incredible founders. CZ, who's the founder and the founder of Binance, is Canadian and grew up in the ecosystem. Obviously, Gabe, who's on our board, spent a lot of time in Canada, going to university there. We lost so much of that talent. So much of that talent has left. So many of those companies have left. It's been really hard and sad to watch. I think our regulatory environment, unfortunately, has moved in the wrong direction. Stable coins being securities just makes absolutely no sense, and it's counter to what every other kind of thoughtful, innovative government has done with respect to stablecoin legislation. So very much my hope is as we get clarity through the U.S. government, which I think there's optimism clarity gets passed this fall. I think we'll see governments around the world, including Canada, start to really mirror a regulatory environment that looks more like what the U.S. has done, and it certainly behooves them to do so. The United States has the deepest capital markets in the world. That's not going to change anytime soon. Companies need to be there for liquidity reasons as they grow and scale. A lot of the capital that helps form these companies comes out of the U.S., and so we really need to be working more closely or be better aligned with how we're treating these assets if we're going to expect or hope for that innovation economy to come back into Canada in this space.
And I think both of us have been in meetups since, 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
We saw the trials of 3IQ, and every meetup was like, hey, we finally won, or we're getting there. And it's like, if you're a builder in this space, that doesn't seem like a fun path. Even if you win,
No.
it's not really a fun path to build in. And eventually, it's just like the war of attrition. Eventually, you're like, hey, let's just go build somewhere else where
Yeah.
they want to invite companies like ours. We saw that with Ledin having to kind of leave Canada, go into other jurisdictions because it's like they couldn't wait on the regulations to kind of yield to what they were trying to do. I would love for you to kind of just give a high level because, Genius Act passes, but there's also the Clarity Act. There's also the Anti-CBDC Act, which seems optimistic for a similar path as Genius.
Yeah.
Kind of like, can you give me a high level of those two acts and how it impacts ReserveOne and just the crypto ecosystem in general in the US?
Yeah, what Genius gives us is clarity around stable coins, but what we really need after that is clarity around the rest of the digital assets within the ecosystem. So we know that Bitcoin is a commodity and it's regulated as such, and that's clear. But for the rest of the ecosystem, we do not have clarity on how they're going to be treated. With respect to, are they a commodity? Are they a security? And the Clarity Act is what will bring exactly that clarity, hence the name, to the rest of the digital assets in the ecosystem that we really care about. And so I think there's a lot of reason for optimism that once clarity gets passed officially, the Clarity Act, that we'll see a halo come into these other digital assets that have been waiting for that regulatory, that market clarity, which is one of the reasons that we're excited that we have not just a Bitcoin only company that we're rooted in Bitcoin, but we still have exposure to these other assets that I think are gonna come in to their own season here with the regulatory clarity that we hope to get out of these last bills.
And I know you're following probably this, the Bitcoin reserve as well as the digital asset stockpile and using that as the framework. Is there any other crypto assets? You've been around in the industry for, 8-9 years. Are there any other assets you're like, hey, it's not a priority, but it'd be kind of cool to see us like participate in these assets because you've been around the ecosystem, probably know a lot of the founders and probably utility of a lot of these tokens.
Yeah.
Is there any other assets you're like, hey, if I had to bring in a 6-man for this team, this would be another asset to add to the books?
Ooh, it's hard. It's like picking favorites amongst your friends, right? There are some people that I just have a ton of respect for that have been builders in this space a long time. John Woo is probably right at the top of that list. I'm a big fan of John and the work that he's doing, and would be hopeful that he may be able to be included in that over time. I think I've had love affairs over the years with various tokens associated with projects that they were working on that I thought were really exciting. So yeah, I don't want to go too far in alienating my other founder friends, but I think we'll probably see 6 or 7 more added to the digital asset stockpile. And that's going to be really exciting. I'm really rooting for a number of founders in that regard for sure.
I love it. Were you surprised at some of the tokens they picked? Because it's a range of like, hey, just hyped tokens like Solana, but then Cardano's in there, like very foundational. Were you based on like their experience with digital assets? Were you surprised that they really covered a lot of their bases with that digital asset stockpile and didn't just be like, okay, Ethereum and Solana?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of momentum around the assets that they did choose. There are massive communities that support XRP and ADA. The founding teams have done a ton of work bringing attention to their projects, bringing users, bringing developers, investing in updating and constantly evolving those chains. So I think it really doesn't surprise me that the teams, the communities have put in a ton of work to get those tokens where they are.
I love it. You're entrepreneurial, and there's a lot of talk about moats these days, especially with AI. How do you defend against new entrants? We have a lot of crypto millionaires and soon to be billionaires. How do you defend on someone's like, hey, I have $1 billion worth of capital. I'm just going to follow their exact game plan. I'm assuming there's a lot of strategy that goes around like people relationships and networks and the ability to understand these markets far beyond of just having $1 billion to deploy.
Yeah, I think, look, it's running public companies is difficult. I think people kind of underestimate the complexity, the cost, the paperwork. I mean, it is very, very intense. Governance, regulatory, all of the things involved in being under the level of scrutiny that you are running a public company. I think people that are new to the space, or as anyone would be, until you've sat in this chair, it's impossible to imagine just how difficult it is to run a public company, in particular in digital assets in this market. So I think that's a moat for sure. I think scale is going to be more increasingly important over time. You need to be scaled. You need to have the ability to be a consolidator during different market conditions, which takes experience, it takes expertise, it takes grit in a lot of cases. So I think it's really important to have to establish a moat with a first mover advantage, like we have, being the first diversified, scaled, actively generating returns on the assets with a very differentiated management team, and then really just looking to continue to drive and grow and scale and hold that first mover position, which is certainly the intention of the Avenger team that I've assembled over here.
It is amazing. Is it tough? You're operational, but you're also dealing with a lot of high-level people that have a varied amount of experience, knowledge, and they're, A players in their own right. as a CEO or as someone that's trying to build a team as a startup, how difficult is it to run with a bunch of A players, or does it make it easier that you're now so focused on a certain, risk or responsibility or a task that you don't have to kind of walk them through some of the other things that more inexperienced professionals that you might have to do there?
Yeah, I think the fact that it's all seasoned professionals. Many of us have known each other for many years, so there's a trust that's established. We know where we want to go. We're not afraid to do the work and make the investments to get us there. So no, I think we're blessed by experience and blessed by embedded trust, which takes time to establish, and we're lucky that we have it right out of the gate.
And I think, everyone's been in the industry long enough that there's a minimal level of you know that they're in it for the right reasons, because if they
Yes.
weren't, there's so many opportunities where they could have exited the train.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I was scaling through your LinkedIn. I saw a wonderful picture as a parent, a wonderful picture of your two daughters with you at Times Square, ReserveOne proudly in the background displayed on a huge electronic banner. But your daughters look older, and I have to say, like, you're building a lot of what you're building is probably as you're raising these two amazing human beings. How
Yes.
challenging it was, not even just as a mother, but as a parent in general. I'm a husband. I know when my kids get sick, they're not running to me, So how hard or challenging was it to be a builder in this space? And do you have any advice for other, a lot of people having parents, a lot of people have kids now that are building these companies. Any advice for them on things that you've experienced that you're like, hey, maybe it's travel, you bringing your family with you, more expensive to travel with them, but like you created these experiences. Anything that you can levy to these people that are watching you and be like, wow, like that's a huge proud mom moment, proud parent moment. I would love to replicate that.
Yeah, that the Times Square experience that we had a few weeks ago was incredible. A number of stars had to align in order for that experience to have been able to happen. And so tons of gratitude to everybody that was behind that. I think for me, it's raising daughters as well. Like I'm the mom of two girls. Um, Being a role model and thinking about what I'm modeling has always kind of been in the back of my mind. I've always been very careful not to complain about work, which is a lot of people just kind of do that out of habit. But I often talk about how blessed I am. I love my career. I love my work. I love my teams, and I make sure that they know that. I think that's been important. I do take them with me from time to time on business trips where we can do something fun, or I can expose them to the industry in some way, which has been awesome. I have them come and listen to me speak, do public speaking, so that my work isn't just this thing that's off in the ether. Like they actually understand it. They're connected to it. They see me in action, so it's more tangible. They understand that I love it, and it is I consider it a blessing to be able to have had the career that I've had. Of course, they pay a bit of a price as well for having a working mom that travels. And some days I think I'm going to be able to take a day off, and I end up not stepping away from my laptop for even 5 minutes. So, they pay the price for that. And I think just being open and communicating and trying to make up for it later as much as you can is really all you can do. And look, the other thing I had to make my peace with really, really early on was I'm not the mom that's baking the cookies. I'm not on the PTA. Like that's not on the cards for me.
Fun fact, nobody wants to be on the PTA. Everyone
No,
talks about the
no, I
PTA.
don't.
My
I
wife
think
was there for like 4 months. She's like, this is what the PTA is? I'll just stay home every Wednesday night. Thank you.
But I think the most important thing is not feeling guilty. Like my girls get a different type of experience, a different type of exposure, and unfortunately, I'm not going to feel bad that I don't have time to fit in the cupcakes. Like there is no world where you can be the super mom and you can do everything that everyone does. It doesn't happen, and it's going to create too much, stress within you. You kind of have to pick your lanes and focus. And in many cases over the years, I've had to outsource and just I want to spend quality time with my family. I want to spend quality time with my kids, with my husband. I want to be able to focus on my job. And so Uber Eats delivers my groceries, or, you can't do it all. So figure out what's important to you, focus on that, and figure out how to minimize the stress of the rest.
I'm not going to touch ages, but I'm about the age where I didn't see my parents either. Like they come to maybe a game here and there, but like our parents were working. Our parents didn't have the luxury of internet and cell phone. At least mine
Right.
didn't. Where like we didn't see them. We saw our babysitters. Like everyone went to the babysitter. Everyone played in the streets till 8 o'clock at night. We
Yeah,
would
that's
see our
true.
parents maybe on the weekends, but they were exhausted. I don't know when society came to the point where it's like we want to do everything with our kids. I'm like, oh, I was never raised like that. So it seems kind of odd. And for the most part, I think we turned out all right. I think we turned out all right.
I think we did. I think we're a good generation. I think you and I are the same vintage. But I also was blessed. I had a working mom. She was an executive when I was growing up, and it just didn't occur to me not to want to try to do the same thing.
I agree. There's a couple stats going around. I'm not sure if it was your website, but the projected stat for 2030 that around 25% of S&P 500 companies will hold BTC long-term as a long-term asset. Let me know why is this important for companies? What's a competitive advantage for companies to hold Bitcoin? And what's the bottleneck? Why don't we have 50 or 75% of our companies holding Bitcoin? What's their thing that's holding them back from jumping in, with both feet?
Look, I think we're still early. There are as much as I've been in this space for as long as I have, I would say the majority of my friends and family still haven't taken on any direct digital asset exposure, be it Bitcoin or anything else. So there's still very much an educational curve that people need to climb. I think for public companies, especially if it's not in their core business, they have to get a lot of stakeholders aligned with making a shift like that of putting Bitcoin as a treasury asset, as opposed to just whatever the local fiat is. But I think why it's becoming increasingly common, and I think will continue to be at a more accelerated rate, is people are just starting to really understand the purchasing power that's being eroded from fiat. And so looking at something that over its lifespan, going back to when it first had a monetary value in 2009, 2010, whenever the pizza was paid for, Bitcoin is a harder store of value. It just is. And over time, just given the scarcity that's built into the system, purchasing power of Bitcoin increases while purchasing power of fiat decreases. So it's really just a smart play to have a harder store of value as part of your treasury strategy. And it all comes down to purchasing power over time, which is what is driving the trend, and I think is going to accelerate the trend.
And I think, maybe not. Remember, companies are run by people. And,
Yeah.
as a person, I'm like, oh, there's not really like a clear line in the sand of someone that has crypto or invests in crypto that resembles me, right? Either it's the crypto bros, our Lamborghinis, they end up in jail for doing something or another. Or there's like, people like Michael Saylor that's like, okay, he was rich already or something of the equivalent. And, Popolano, like they're already investing in things. And that's not really realistic for me either.
Right.
There's not really a common man's person that's like, yeah, I invest in crypto. I also, work, at a regular executive job. There's not really that kind of lineage that I feel that people can attract themselves to and be like, yeah, that seems like a person like me. It's either one, side of the spectrum
Right.
of shiny, I'm a crypto rapper, and the other side of the spectrum of these people already had money and now they're just leveraging crypto. There's no real like working class, blue collar crypto people that I feel that people can relate to. I could be wrong, but what are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think the personalities that dominate this space are, yeah, it's hard to see yourself in those dominant personalities. I would argue working women should be able to see themselves in me. I'm not a crypto bro. I'm a builder. I'm a technologist. That's how I got here. I'm not a cowboy. My team isn't a bunch of cowboys. So I think we are breaking the mold a little bit with what we're building here at ReserveOne, and that's going to continue to be the case. You're not going to see me driving a Lamborghini or doing anything wearing crazy clothes. Like I'm just a normal technology executive that happens to be in this space, and I love it very much, and I'm grateful to be here. But this is how I would dress and talk and act if I was still in trad tech or tradfi. I would say, and that's very, very true about all of the people around me as well. We're professionals. We're building. We're leading, and the industry is something we believe in, but it doesn't define us as far as our personalities go.
I would still picture you in like a red Ferrari with like the license plate that says like the fixer, because you're always working in transformational. So
Not
just
this time. The beauty of ReserveOne is I actually get to build it right out of the gate with the right team, right structure, right governance. I don't. This is the first time I'm not fixing anything. It's a beautiful thing.
and it's paid off with that like backdrop. I know I commented on, but this is a beautiful backdrop looking out to the lake in New York City. I love it. Any exciting news, anything in the industry that you're excited about or that you can disclose about the team? I know it's a really hard publicly company, but is there anything that you're excited about in the industry? You're like, hey, I see the word that being used a lot more. I'm sure there's going to be a wave of everything's a that, just like everything was a SPAC. What are your thoughts about the future of the industry and what ReserveOne, where you guys fit in it?
Yeah, no, look, I think we have seen the creation of a new category. Strategy started it arguably and kind of owned it. But over the last few months, it's become a category in and of itself. And I think that's exciting. I think it'll continue to be a very hot topic of conversation in the space over the short and medium term. And I'm excited just looking at my calendar for the next few months. It's going to be a lot of fabulous conversations happening all over the world, and the investors are very, very excited. I think there's something here that is going to be here for the long term, and it's exciting to be on the leading edge of it and being able to build something that's really, really unique in the space. And I love getting out and telling our story. So again, thank you for having me on and being able to do just that here.
We appreciate it. Where's the best place for people to find you? I know LinkedIn, you do a lot of great posting there. I'm assuming maybe you're on Twitter, but maybe not as much because Twitter is very noisy. I could be wrong, but very noisy for traditional folks that are trying to get into crypto. Where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, look, one of the other things I'm blessed with is a really unique name. So I'm the only Jaime Leverton in the world. Especially spelt the way I spell my first name, which is Jaime. There's a whole story behind that, which we can go into another day. So I'm at Jaime Leverton on Twitter, on Telegram, on LinkedIn. I literally just Google my name and you'll find a way to connect with me. JamieLeverton.com is the website that I use for my venture and advisory business that I started a couple of years ago. Or you can just email me, jamie@reserveone.com. I'm very accessible.
Very risky, but yeah, very accessible, very risky.
Very accessible. I got a great security team, so don't do anything weird. They'll catch you.
Last question before we go. You're working with people that are in mining and data centers, which I'm sure that overlaps and bleeds into AI. You're working with some of the top professionals in every unique part of the industry. They've been in the industry for so long. What are the nerdy, and I could say that as a term of endearment in crypto because we can use the word nerd and people love that. What are they playing with? Like, what are some of the things? Is it like cold plunges? Is it red light saunas? What are some of the interesting things that maybe you're doing to keep up with your schedule from a biological or health perspective? Or what are some of the things that you're playing? Are you like investing in Neuralink or seeing what people are doing there? I'm curious.
I'm old school. I like my intermittent fasting. I like my daily Pilates. I like my jogs. I haven't gone too crazy on the new health side. I sit on some amazing boards. So I'm on the board of Riot Platforms, a team that I've obviously known for many years, have tons of respect for. I'm on the board of an AI startup company called Vertical Data that's doing some amazing things in inference. I am on the board of Syntech, which is just an awesome infrastructure provider to both the Bitcoin mining side of the world as well as HPC, and I'm proud to chair that board. And then I'm also on the board of a great Canadian oil and gas company called New West Data, where they're an oil and gas company. They own producing oil wells, and they have Bitcoin as their byproduct from carbon capture, which is just an amazing, like such a great Canadian story. Bitcoin as a byproduct, I just think is wild and absolutely where the future is going to go when we think about, you know, energy production and avoiding that those carbon emissions in a really unique way. So yeah, I got a ton on my plate, but it's all stuff as you can see I'm super passionate about. They're all just amazing teams. I try to associate myself with as low ego individuals as possible, and I'm blessed that across my slate, ReserveOne and everything else I touch are just really, really good, positive, solid, lovely people doing great work.
That's amazing. I think that's probably advice for anyone listening to the podcast. Low ego, high returns seems to be maybe high risk too with some of the ventures that you've been a part of. Now I get to say I've interviewed the one and only Jaime Leverton, as you are the only one. Jaime, it's so glad I saw what you were talking about on ReserveOne, and I reached out to you and I'm like, hey, I would love to hear more about what you're building, because everything sounds the same what we're getting now from TradFi to Web3. So I love the fact that you're able to kind of show us the differentiations, especially with building another public company and building it up. It was great to have you on the podcast.
Great to be here. Always happy to hang out with you.
Thank you so much.
Of course.